All right. And what does it say here? Family names from the Irish, Anglo-Saxon, Anglo-Norman, and Scotch, considered in relations to their etymology, with brief remarks of the history and languages, peoples to whom we are indebted for their origin, by Thomas G. Gentry. This is from 1892. Now it says here, Dever, originally Duber, from Dub, which means black. Dub, black. Like Dublin, the city of Dublin is the city of black. Dub, man, a dark complexioned man. Dubur, Duibur, Dub, a dark complexioned man. Deegan, all right, and says here, Deflin, Dub, black, Lin, marsh, or swamp. Just like moor also means swamp, a wasteland. That's another definition for moor. Just like dub also means a marsh, because you know what? A lot of these dark-skinned people were living along marshes, and it was becoming associated to them as well. So the word meant a lot more than just meaning a wasteland or a marsh. All right. So dub, black, lin, and marsh swamp. Said dub, duffy. Duffy is also like dub, pronounced dub or dupe or black. Dub, black, an individual, a black person, a black dub. All right. Dougal or Douglas, right? Douglas, right? Douglas from black, dark, glass, green, gray, dark green, dark gray. Dougal. So Douglas means black too. Douglas. Dougal from dub, black, gal, stranger, a black stranger. Dougal from the same roots. All right. So this book is called Ancient and Modern Britons, a retrospect. This is from volume 1. And it says here, Thurman and Davis and Huxley Busk, Virchow, Tubino, and others have proved the existence in Europe of a Neolithic race, small of stature, with long or oval skulls, and accustomed to bury their dead in tombs. Their remains have been found in Belgium and France and Britain, Germany and Denmark, as well as in Spain, but they bear a closer resemblance to the Basques than to any other living people. This Neolithic race has consequently been identified with the Basques and the Iberians, and extreme exponents of the theory do not hesitate to speak of the Iberian ancestors of the people of England, recognizing the racial characteristics in the small, swarthy Welshman, the small dark Highlander, and the black Celts to the west of the Shannon, as well as in the typical inhabitants of Aquitania and Brittany. Some investigators go even further. M.D. Arbois de Jubainville, for example, regards the Iberians as the descendants of the Atlantes. All right, what have we learned about Atlantis? It says, example, the hypothetical inhabitants of Plato's great western isle of Atlantis. All right, so you see what I'm saying? So are these all these swarthy people really from Africa? Is that what you think I'm saying? And maintains that in Europe they possess Spain, Gaul, Italy, and the British Isles, penetrated into Balkan Peninsula and occupied part of northern Africa, Corsica, and Sardinia. From where? From Atlantis. Not the origin was in northern Africa. He's saying it came from Atlantis. Thus we see that the Basques or Euskers were looked at as Ugrians, are brachycephalic or round-headed and sallow, rather than tawny in complexion. As Iberians, they are dolicho or cumbocephalic and of a swarthy hue. According to the one conjecture, they are nearer the Eskimo than the Tasmanian. According to others, they are more Australoid than Mongoloid. The points which they are share in common viewed from either position are their short stature and black hair and eyes. The probability is that the Ugrians were a greatly mixed people, and that they constituted a meeting ground for those two great human families whose qualities they possess in varying degrees. Indeed, so far as nomenclature goes, there is evidence of their hybrid character. There were certainly Ugri or black Ugris as well as white. Again, there was black Ugris as well as white, black Khazars as well as white Khazars. All right, there was also black Khazars. All right, they weren't all white. You know, we say the Ashkenazis are Khazars. Well, maybe they're from their white Ukrainian ones. or maybe some of them were from the Black Khazars too, you know. But again, there were Black Khazars and White Khazars, Black Bulgarians and White Bulgarians, of all whom belong to this classification of Ungari, Ugri, or ogres. An ogre, a same authority states that Constantine Polygonetius tells us that the Hungarians, by him called Turks, formerly dwelt near the Khazars in a place called Lebedias. Then he says they were not called Turks, but Sabartoisfali. Sues ingeniously conjectures that the first syllables are equivalent to the German Swart, Swart, Swartzy, Swartz, black, and that the whole word is a translation of the Slavic Cerni Ugri, black Ugri, by which the Hungarians are known in later Russian writers. The Hungarians were known as the black Ugri. Hungarians, the Hun, are known in later Russian as writers, while white and black, as is well known, means with Eastern writers little more than dominant and dependent. Thus, the Black Khazars, or Hungarians, were the subjects of the White Khazars. He's saying here. It says black or Kara. All right, so Kara, this is an explanation that he was talking about. I just wanted to show the footnote. So Kara, Carolina, Kara, much love to drop. You're breaking this down. Kara means black. Kara, Carolina, Kara. All right, so it says this word is an example of the Ugrian element in Celtic speech. In Gaelic, it is siar or kiar, which is spelled car, car, and ker in modern Scottish surnames. All right, so all these surnames, as he was letting you know, means black. Okay, all of which are simply kiar or sar. The final a of the slower speaking Mongoloids has dropped off, but the word is the same. It now means swarthy or dark brown rather than black, which signification attaches more distinctly to the word dub. All right, remember dub, and that means black too. Dub, Dublin, right? Dublin, dub is all about swarthiness or people of dark complexion. All right, continuing in the book, it says, but at any rate, the people known as Iberians were spread all over the British Islands, whether indigenous or immigrants, and some of their tribes were known as Damoni and Siluris. This seems to be generally admitted. Physically, they were swarthy of color. All right, they were swarthy of color and curly hair and were bearded like goats. They or some clans of them worshipped the gods, and both men and women professed a knowledge of the future. So then the Druids and Druidesses, who had colleges in an island near the coast of Brittany, who professed a knowledge of the future, who the men at least were figured as bearded like goats, and who worshipped the gods were dark-skinned, curly-haired Iberians of the tribe of the Siluris of the Moni. All right, and this is the Journal of the Anthropological Institute of Great Britain and Ireland, volume 17 from 1888. Long before the Roman conquest, the intrusive Aryan Celt had been intermarrying with the older inhabitants of the country, who doubtless belonged to more than one race, the result being that the so-called Celtic race is an amalgamation, all right, of races different physiologically but dominated by a common moral and intellectual character. The consequence of subjection for a long series of generations to the same conditions of life, it has become a commonplace of ethnology that the so-called Celtic race includes not only the fair complexioned Aryan Celt, but also the black Celt or Iberian with the dark skin, black hair and eyes and small limbs. The subject, however, is much more complex than this simple division would imply. We have seen that under the red Celt are included two distinct varieties. The black Celt is equally irreducible to the single type, while the fact that two types of red and black recur in the same family, my own for example, not only indicates their long continued intermixture, but suggests the existence of intermediate varieties. All right, but they're letting you know in this book that the Celts also were black. These Celts, right? These Celts, black Celts. In my address to the Archaeological Institute of Salisbury, I have referred to the peculiarities of this district as an ancient ethnical frontier, and to the existence of a small, dark race of people amongst the peasantry at a present time. Says the Mediterranean type of Italy and Spain, brachy, cephalic, short, dark, with black eyes, dark hair. This he thinks is Iberic and ultimately Berber. The Slavonic type, brachycephalic, with a short face, short stumpy nose, and little beard. This is the Turco-Tatar or Ugric type. To this type belong the lower classes of Bavaria and southern Germany, who are brachycephalic and dark, while the upper classes are dorscephalic, tall and fair. The Celts are largely mixed. Some classes are tall and red-haired, others short and dark. The Iranians and Indians originally tall and fair, but much altered by climatic influences. So this book is called Ancient and Modern Britons, a retrospect. This is from volume 1. Perhaps this distinction does not exist, but at any rate, if the small dark Highlander and the black Celt to the west of Shannon be assumed to be the descendants of Iberians, it may fairly be argued that with so much intermixture with fairer races during the last 2,000 years, the stock must now be lighter skinned than then, and its representatives of the first century must have been actually as black as Negroes. As a matter of fact, Pliny characterizes their complexion as Ethiopian, that is, as black as an Ethiopian. And it may be that the curliness of their hair was of the same nature as a Negro also. Thus, the Negritos of Huxley, the owners of such skulls as those found in Caithness, may have been allied to the ancient Iberians. The wild tribes of Ireland were black men. It's hinted by the fact that a wild Irishman is Gaelic, a black Irishman, Dub Irenach. All right? A black Irishman is a wild Irishman, they're saying here. Dub Irenach. And it says, according when one looks again into the Gaelic dictionary, one finds the Gorman is wood. Plainly, therefore, a man who is titled Gorm is wood-stained or wood-stained man. Now, although it's the Gaelic of Scotland, a Negro is known as Duin Dub, a black man. He is known in the Gaelic of Ireland as Duin Gorm, a blue-green or wood-stained man. And while in the Scottish Highlands the adjective glass is used to signify both swarthy and green, in Wales it has the meaning of green and blue. And in the latter country, the Gaelic Gorm, here spelled Gorm, is equivalent to brown. What possible explanation for all these apparent confusions of terms can there be except the patent one that a brown-skinned man and a wood-colored man were one and the same? Wood-colored wood, mahogany, copper-colored mahogany, wood. These sketches are the presentment of what in all conscious is savage people. The Maatei, or marsh folk, against whom Severus fought, were Caldoni, nicknamed Picts, known as Moors or black men, all right, meaning their skin, of the race of Damuni, who had curly hair, which may mean Siablaka, and swarthy skins, which they tattooed with their family totems. They wore nothing except their weapons, like Zulus or any other dark-skinned savages. They smeared their faces with the blood of their foes. If they, the Damoni, were not Norwegians, and the latter Danes, but the typical Dane of today is not a black-haired man, quite the reverse. And dub means black without any word of hair, all right? Dub means black. It doesn't have nothing to do nothing with hair, they're letting you know. It has nothing to do with hair because they try to say, well, they mean people with black hair. No, they mean people with black complexion. These two sections of invaders were also known as Finn, Genti, and Dub Genti, white Gentiles and black Gentiles. And as according to Armstrong, Fionn Loughlin Naig and Dub Loughlin Naig, white and black Lougliners. All right, so these clans and these people have different complexions, white and dark skin types of these people. All right, complexion, and they're actually or the Scandinavians. Basically, it says and black Lougliners or Scandinavians. And in the wars of the Gadhil and the Gaels and Gauls, the Danari, Dan, are styled black Danars or black Danes, talking about very high percentage of mixture with Danites here. All right. If in none of these terms is there any hint that the color of the hair is indicated, but the expression used by Saint Bergen in speaking of the Norwegians leaves no room for doubt. He calls them the gentiles of pure color. The Danes then were not of pure color, they were dub or black as any rate, let us suppose, as the black Huns, who were of a dark complexion, almost black. What may be called genealogical evidence of the existence of black-skinned races existing in Scotland within historic times has already been adduced in considering the Moors, and it is difficult to decide whether the example given out to be styled Picts, so-called, or Danes. They're saying, should we be calling them Moors or Picts or Danes? Because both were Picts and contemporaries and lived at the same time, and they were distinct, which still bears the name of the ancient Moray men, was also the very district in which the Danes, in parentheses, lingered longest, that excluding the Isles. So he's trying to tell you there's a connection there with the Danes, Danites, these Picts, these so-called Picts, right? If you don't know the Picts, the movie Braveheart, he was supposed to be representing a Pict, right? And so, of course, they whitewashed it, right? And they put, Mel Gibson on. You can take my land, but you can't take my freedom. It was a good movie, though. But the pigs were definitely aboriginal melanated people. And could they have come from the old world, the true old world, Atlantis, so-called Atlantis, America? I remember earlier he says there's definitely proof that they might have come from there and mixed with these Iberians and then these other people in Ireland and all that. So he's saying the Danes also have a lot of influence. They lived at the same time with the Picts. All right, so the Picts meant like almost saying pictures or tattoos because they had a lot of tattoos in their body, almost just like the California Indians, the old pictures we see of the California Indians. All right. Now it says for which reason it had become the hunting ground of the fair-skinned victors, descendants of the Freckshire and the Flemen. Beowulf the Flemen, founder of the powerful Innes family and others of kindred race. Therefore, when a black man is discovered on a family tree of 1,000 years ago, he may be either a Dane or a pig. All right. Again, therefore, when a black man is discovered on a family tree of 1,000 years ago, people would either say he's a Dane or a pig. All right. Of those, however, who are better known by the former name, there may be specified an ancestor of the Macleods or Macleod. All right. That family being held to be descended at that date of Martin's visit to the Western Islands, and in his words, from Leod, son to the Black Prince of Man, which island was the long time under the rule of the Danes. The father of this Leod was in all probability Olaf's Swarty or Olaf the Swarty, mentioned in the Flateian manuscript, who was king of Man during the 13th century. All right, a certain branch of the Campbells has also a similar lineage. Who? The Macleods, Maloids, Lloyd, they come from Swarty people, and also who? The Campbells. The Campbells, right? Familiar surname. So I got this book right here. It's called Anacalypsis. I've read from this book a lot. Um, and in my ancient or untold truth of ancient America and my Hebrew videos, a lot of good information in this book. This guy gets really deep. Again, it's called Anacalypsis, is an attempt to draw aside the veil of the Saitic Isis or the inquiry into the origin of languages, nations, and religions by Godfrey Higgins, Esquire. All right, this is from volume 1. And he says right here, says, some years ago, um, I was informed by a friend since deceased that he had seen a church, I think in the Netherlands, dedicated to the Black Virgin, a la Virgin Noire. I have no doubt of the fact, though I have forgotten the place. Here we have the Black Venus and Ceres. Alright, Ceres is linked also with the corn deity of America. If you saw my corn videos, this Ceres, this Black Virgin. Alright, the corn mother actually. Same thing. They were the nourishment, the corn mother, a lot of it, that whole Mary and all that is coming out of that too as well. And again, they're telling us here that we have the Black Venus and Ceres to make this the thing complete. We want nothing but a church dedicated to the Black Savior. And if we cannot show this, there is scarcely a church in Italy where a black bambino may not be seen, which comes very near it, a black bambino. If Pausanias had told us that the infant Jupiter, which he found in Arcadia, had been black, we should have had all required, for he had before told us that Jupiter had the title of Savior, and Statius tells us he was black. All right, Jupiter was what? Black. Jupiter, the god Jupiter. Who's Jupiter? AKA Toph. Who's this black savior? Their savior, right? Zeus. Black bambino. Either way, they're letting us know these black bambinos can be seen everywhere. And even their gods are so-called black. Says, I believe that all the black bambinos of Italy are Negroes, not merely blacks. This admitted, it would prove the very early date of their entrance into Italy. Dr. Pritchard has successfully proved that the blackness of the skin is not caused by heat alone. It's not just because they got a tan, that the Negro is to be found in cold as well as hot climates, and that the change, which in various instances has taken place in his complexion, is to be ascribed more to civilization than to climate. All right? It's not about, oh, because you live near the equator that you're dark. They're letting you know that right here. Because the Negro is to be found in cold as well as hot climates. All right? It's to be ascribed more to civilization than to climate. This perfectly agrees with the observation of Mr. Crawford that man is found improved and rich and farinaceous, but stationary in desert districts. Civilization was the effect of the former, barbarism of the latter. All right, and well, if we follow civilization, we know that a big thing of civilization was agriculture, people being able to settle down and massively produce food instead of just hunting all the time and following, so this was with corn. Corn helped civilize people, and most of these cities, ancient cities in America, was corn. The mound builders, in Mexico, Peru, it was corn, and then they had their other foods, but corn was the main staple. It says it cannot reasonably be doubted that a race of Negroes had formerly preeminence in India. These were the inhabitants of India in the time of the curly-headed Buddha, who was succeeded after 2160 or 2160 years by the long-haired Krishna, one an incarnation of the solar god in Taurus, the other in Aries. Thus I count for the Negro Buddha and for the handsome, though black Krishna. All right, all their deities are represented as so-called black people or Negro people. Their features, their hair, especially Buddha, and they know this. All right, those are little corn rolls or little like when they separate the hair, the locks, the little locks, right on top of the hair of the Buddha. And somebody told me yesterday, left a comment and said, "Hey, sounds like Prince Maya from the Ramayana." He says, "I believe it's the same person as Buddha, and it's most likely, maybe it is." We're gonna dig on that. In aid of this theory, a reconsideration of the foregone pages will show that we have found the black complexion or something relating to it, whether we have approached to the origin of the nations, the alma mater, the goddess Multimamia, the founders of the oracles, the Memons or first idols were always black. Venus, Juno, Jupiter, Apollo, Bacchus, Hercules, Astaroth, Adonis, Horus, Apis, Osiris, Ammon. In short, all the wood and stone deities were black. The images remained as they were first made in very remote times. They were not susceptible of any improvement, and when for any reason they required renewal, they were generally made exactly after the former sacred pattern. I once saw a man repainting a black god on a house side in Italy. Says Mr. Franklin makes an observation which is new to me, that the ancient Astrulians had the countenances of Negroes, the same as the images of Buddha in India. This is very striking when compared with the proofs which I have given in my Celtic Druid chapter 2 section, all right? He's convinced. So this book is called Ancient and Modern Britons, a retrospect. This is from volume 1. Pennant speaks of Sir Colin, ancestor of the Brett Baldwin line, the famous Knights of Rhodes, surnamed from his complexion and from his travels dubbed Na Rome or Black Colin of Rome. And in a manuscript history of the Campbells, written about 1827, the author says that Rick Deirin, dubbed Loch Oin, the Black Knight, or Loch was the name then used by the Highlanders in mentioning the chief of the Duin, Campbells, who or their followers were probably the swarthy men from Lorne introduced in one of the legends. The swarthy men from Lorne. They must have been laterally displaced by a totally different race, as that member of the clan, whom I have just quoted, states that the Campbells nowadays boast of their yellow hair. All right. So what is he telling you right there? They must have been displaced. Why is he saying that? Why is this author from this book, right, saying, yo, these people must have been displaced? Why? By a totally different race. Because the members of that clan now, they happily boast of their yellow hair. They don't, describe the old, people that were being called, by this name and this clan. All right. Do you have those names on your surname? Are you the one that got replaced? Now it says here, the Danes then were like the Moors, black. So the Danes were like the Moors. They weren't the Moors. They were like the Moors, black. Meaning they were dark skinned, just like anybody being referenced more, black. Like them too, they were Picts, as more than one eminent writer has proved. The title of Gorm, wood-stained, is not confined to Highland genealogies. It was the actual name of a grim old pagan Dane who ruled over Denmark in the earlier part of the 10th century, and the word survived lately in that province of the Black Gentiles, Northumberland, where it bore the significance of to smear, to dub. So also were the Picts known as such, at home on sea as well as on land, like the Danes. In the year 729, the Irish annals record that 3 ships of the Picard dock were wrecked this year on Iroy's cuisine, and 10 years previously there had been fought the maritime battle of Ardenisby between Duncan, the son of Bec, with the tribe of Gabran, and Selbach, with the tribe Lorne, in which battle certain chiefs were slain, whether as Danes or as Picts. They were a swarthy, piratical race, a swarthy, piratical race. And it is interesting to notice that the custom of tattooing has survived longest in their professional descendants, our own seamen. But the swarthy hue asserts itself still, though, in a modified degree. Last century, when Martin described the western islands of Scotland, he remarked that the complexion of the natives of Skye was for the most part black. Scotland, black. Of the natives of Judah, or is that a D? Judah, he said that they were generally black of complexion, and of Aran that they were generally brown, and some of black complexion. The inhabitants of the Isles of Gigay presented a greater mixture. They were fair or brown in complexion, and Pennant, speaking of the Islay people, describes them as lean, withered, dusky, and smoke-dried. In the memorable tour through the north and west of Scotland, Johnson and Boswell several times took notice of the swarthy color of some of the natives. All right, the swarthy color of who? The natives. And where? Scotland. And this says, whether we look therefore at the Danes of history or at the people who today have the best claim to be regarded as their descendants, we see before us men of skin, swarthy skin, and what is more, we see that Meredith and the southern Welsh of the 10th century were by inference Centro Croy. All right. It says here chapter 8. All right. So I try to go through most of the book and pick out, parts where they were describing. All right. So this says here before going on to consider the various consequences of regarding the Danish pirates as swarthy Danish pirates. All right. Now we're talking about pirates. Who? Danish, Danites, Danish pirates. The tribe Tuat, the Tuat the Danann. Danann came in ships. Danites, Danish pirates, a swarthy half-Mongoloid people. It is advisable to discover, if possible, what traces they have left of their complexion in the topography and the language of this country, they and any other black race. It says the presence of a blackamoor of so-called pigs work, example, Moors work, a circular structure of large stones strongly fortified by a wall, which stands on the left bank of the Black Burn, a mountain stream in the parish of Castleton, Roxburghshire, proclaims with equal distinctness that the river owes its title to the swarthy people who once dwelt beside it. Beside other Black Burns, there is a village of Blackburn in Lincolnshire, a village of Blackford in Perthshire, and another in Mid Lothian. This last is situated in the neighborhood of Morton Hall, where there are several tumuli or pyramids or mounds, and near at hand are pentlands, example, paintlands, formerly Pig or Pictlands, the land of the pigs, a name which still clings to the northeastern limit of Scotland, once known as Galib, or the land of the Gallies, or foreigners, who, whether early pigs or later Danes, were painted Moors. They were painted dark skinned. Pigs were foreigners. Where were they coming from, these pigs? Was it Atlantis again? Of other Scottish rivers showing a like pedigree, there may be named the Black Esk, the Black Cart, the Black Adder, each of which has a companion white stream of the same name, the Black Devon and the Black Megget Water, each of which has a companion bearing no distinctive forename, and it may be noted that the Blackadder flows through the district known as the Merse or Marsh, and that the Avondale was one of the chief rivers of those marsh dwellers, or Matai, the Swarthy, the Moni. Says two consecutive circles are traceable on it. Black House, a range of mountains on the natural border of Selkirk and Prebbleshires. This region, from so early a period as the time of Malcolm Seymour, belonged to the family of Douglas or Dub Glass or Black Swarthy. Douglas is two ways of saying basically dark, black, Swarthy. Douglas, and appears to have been used by them as both as fastness and hunting ground. Black Law, a ruined tower of the Douglases of Finkeland, Black Quarter, the territory now forming Patrick Parish, Wintonshire. Several of these places and some other black names are within the limits of the Picts, Blackamoors, Dyke, a long line of ancient fortification in Galloway and Dumfriesshire, commencing at Loch Ryan near Innismesson and extending to the upper part of the Solway Firth. It separates the fertile lands of the seaboard districts from the irreclaimable waste and wild fastness of the mountains. And that this particular district should teem with relics of the black people is not surprising, since according to Mr. Skene, the Picts of Galloway retained their individuality longer than any other division of their kindred. All right. And right here it says Megalith, the Black Builders of Stonehenge. All right. By Elmer von Fleischer. Just wanted to read this. It says in Scandinavia, at least, there is some evidence that the human prototypes of the elves were the short, dark, magic-working, uncanny lapps who were conquered and enslaved by the Gothic invaders of Scandinavia. The Firborgs, Tuatha De Danann, the Nemedians, etc., in Irish mythology were pygmies. The first inhabitants of Greenland in the Arctic Circle were the Twa. They are mentioned in Viking sagas such as the Gralendinga saga and the Eldrick saga. Eric the Red found the Twa when he arrived in Greenland. They also inhabited northern Canada and parts of the Newfoundland and Massachusetts. The Norsemen called them Skrellings. All the early commentators describe them as being black and of short stature. See, for example, Legrand H. Clerk, the second, The Mystery of the Arctic Twa, and Ivan Sertimus' African Presence in Early Europe. David McRitchie has written in Appendix B of work, The Testimony of Tradition, that the Skraelings were ever situated were pygmies. It's evident from the testimony of Olaus Magnus and the accounts of the 11th century Northmen fully corroborate this. All right, and then this is the Journal of the Anthropological Institute of Great Britain and Ireland, volume 9. All right, and it says here that the Gitnaks or Gitanos, the Gitanos or the people from the Gitae area, gypsies who are commonly called in France Bohemians. The former are peaceable and molded in the same civilization as the Basque. The latter, for the most part, lead a nomadic life and are repelled by the inhabitants as thieves and vagabonds, though some lead quite an inoffensive one, like some I saw dwelling at Cyborn, a suburb of Saint Jean de Luz. These are mostly fishermen. They are called Cascarots, a corruption Dr. Gilbert considers a Cascagots. He regards them as African origin. Some of them were very dark and handsome, but not so striking as our gypsies. So let's go to the next. Right, it says The Races of Europe by Carlton Stevens Kuhn. He's a coon, yeah, he's a coon. He's a literally he's a coon, all right? Carlton Stevens Kuhn, The Races of Europe. Assistant Professor of Anthropology, where? In Harvard University. Harvard University, all right? That the Huns came in great numbers cannot be questioned, and that they introduced a completely alien racial type onto European soil is vividly attested by the accounts of numerous contemporary historians, among whom may mention Jordanes, Sidonius, Apollinaris, and Priscus. These authors unanimously describe the Huns as being short, broad-shouldered, like thick-set, swarthy. All right, swarthy, the Huns are swarthy, flat-nosed, slit-eyed, nearly beardless, and bandy-legged. The Avars are described by some authors as being identical with the Huns, but by others as being less horrible of aspect. According to the Byzantine wit, Jordanes, the Avars defeated the Iranian-speaking Alans, who were descendants of the Sarmatians, right? Remember them? By frightening them with their faces and not by valor. Right?